Let me check my volume. Good. Alright, assalamu alaikum, bari on. Guy ngalu kontong al tol ngalu kontong, you know. Meji kirin ko albewe kairo kono. So bi mena kashala ko minna wala be dending ada ku kila malondoro ka don tolo buka kuma fo min tambita polisol fanyala ning seno boja ning ami boja membe you know masakunda la muto kono tilimbaliani tajidinte yaka badaro nim bala firmo kan ko sembo bental la ngamin no mbata ngo tilingila ko min diaran tolyembe barala walla to nyatano mo min diaran tolye drong ntolobe wala kala aman sum fenna na manke wasabaliati hadumo konnante yani hasidia kontela be man se ala ntela lafta drong mo kote manyal lafila wala ni mo kote lafita ntabe ferel sitila ka jakombe wala nonde la nyamin hani ayata ro ferel to ka hada madi wala niota o kunta je kai o mu fere jaw balti kado hada madi wonse jow ya nyaawonya jow ya man tambi ka mofa ka murun ko tanke ka wandi molo tumi min yalon koy bulumedu simmedum bareta fo banko be yalon ko tonya karenyol kam min foten da manke ku sodorinti barale balanga kan ale la fika tilimbaliani tajidinte ya tili wandi dingolula simply because asake do ballo miti man sembo soto yo almanji kinun ko nyin kesbe fudala tembo min ta fudata alti alya walato yo alumaluta kono amalola na tambita alkan barabi lafta kachala minna wala nyinte ko katandala man sakunda kaito min fintindi tolla Ministry of Justice la you know prosecutor meni alon ko walle useno samba kitiola ka kitindi ka foko atale mo fula fa sukuta traffic light ay do barama yo ya foko woke baro nyi mo terrorist aklete woto wolo nyinte ko mo terrorist olete yo nyman sakunda kelingole press conference kumandi ko nyabe do ko la brikama area council la UDP mola mati you know abenu yankuba dabo la court case to pistulo babulle wati jang abenu amuru rebero le tikasa mas you know molle ajo politician le ajo purai police olofa kuma jama barabil lafta min fala wala nyinte ko itolia kaito min fintinde kafo kiti tela nyi ko nyindalil kare wala yati na ita nyanda useno soron na siola iyo nemo fako fomo kunto min nyante ma wala nyinde ko foye sedo le fintindi iyo ahada madonga sedo lomban fa seda jaro lomban fo kulla to mi yalon ko yatandila ko tonya karde itale nyinke so mena wala jibela gambe mansa kunda kabirin jojo ko atole nyantale aliyalla briefs wala nyente ko the summary of everything that happened. You got to submit your brief. They failed to do it on time. Of course they asked for more time. They were giving more time, and of course they did submit their brief. And in their brief, what they did mention is that there are overwhelming evidence and of course unshakable evidence koitolia will present before the court. I will take you through their witnesses and what they want to rely on, seeking a conviction on Usainu Boja. It will be shameful distasteful, embarrassing, and nimu hadamadu to mi yalon ko juso bela, and then hakilo bela akuo be malulale abakele doya kulati kontolla banko bumburu a whole country could actually come out with something like this to claim that somebody should be convicted for murder, sent to life imprisonment, simply because of the reasons that the state advanced. Yo madamu taladami wala nyinti ko itoloko Bakari Arjaju mimi tola witness number 2 PW2 wokole ko itolu nyin soldier saboka do nyin Bakari Arjaju is one of the 3 soldiers ko itolu be bokan nan palmari malakabiri itolu futata nyin dulato ko ate poliso jele ani nyimmo fala be nyo sabola janning abena bunna. But let me pause there. Moro ninya mo fula je be nyo sabola ngalon ko domo police wolti wota ngalon ne way mo uniform si fala dunde. For me to be able to tell that this is a police officer, I should be able to tell what the police officer is wearing and what kind of clothing it is to know that it is a police uniform, because ibuka moje silo kan royal ko police olon because ika jala city fano la bala. So what ate police on na city fano jale. So police on ninyi mimbe nyo sabola kabiri ye tole nyi nka way mo fenne dum e tole mo wo fono. Dole ba fola I have tano la dum, dole ba fola camouflage la dum, but again Mansakunda control yela ko. The reason why inyanta nyin convict la wala nyinde ko nyimba kari Arjaju nyol kabiri toli nyaaya nyin nim police oje be nyo sabola. I fango mindung wala nyinde ko it is yellowish or ash color. Yellowish or ash color. Yellowish or ash color. Moro. Yellow ning ash wala nyoje muntole. Yellow ning ash wala mulunta muntole. Are they colorblind? So that means the person who claimed to see these 2 people having a scuffle could not even tell, but can tell that this one is a police officer because of what his appearance and what he wore, but could not even tell us what this other person wore, but is telling us that is yellowish, ash. But yellow ning ash wala jam fada nyola bakele. Wala man shutia nyola soko ede sa fono ko yellow long wala yellow wala ash, ash like. It's either yellow or it is ash. It cannot be yellowish or ash. Which one are you referring to? What is the color of the shirt of the person that you saw killing the cops or having a scuffle with the cops? Alko jojo nyanta rely la to lo kumakano kampur ka foko usieno bojanna wati. Because he saw somebody wearing, yellowish or yellowish or that means you don't even know what you saw, because nimbinya entejetenting iba fala ko nya di ngaja munden kasifala do oh it is red or black. What are you telling us? You saw this person, you saw what we wore. You still cannot tell if it is red or black, but you tell us it is either yellow or whatever. Are you watching a television series? But the next part of it is the funniest part. Nying Bakari Arjaju, atea foitol yellow code saw a police officer having a scuffle with this person before the person shooting them. But in police killing one of their witnesses, who is the surviving lady, Ansijao. Ansijao ya fokiti motoloko. Itol ni moman nyo saba, eni moman kudunte, eni moman diamusoto, atebe lori na draje kijeke yaje nyimbunjana, itol be move kan towards that environment, ye itol fanambe bung, atenata afongoje loptanoto. What of the surviving one, anenying Arjaju, who would actually be a dependable witness? Isn't Ansijawa contradicting Bakari Arjaju la fanialu? Karnim Bakari ko nyimmo fulo late wala jele be nyo sabola janni nyimbe na nyimbunna bara keta mim fongo nyala andung yate fongo bungo kono akoy tol ni mo man nyo sabay tol ni mo man han ko dunte mo metolu sonkandi soko kafuta bundirla e tol be lori na dro yaje nyimbungo boyta nyindo bungo boyta nyindo fanam bung ndesan. For the state of the Gambia to go this low, for the government of the Gambia to be this complicit and criminal, if somebody told me a couple of years ago, I would say, no, it's not possible. But you know masakundate that we have got to deal with. Aje hadumo, hasidia, wasabalia, na ye dunkuto drum fembuke bondi noje. And that is exactly what happened here. So to tell the court to rely on Bakari Arjaju, who claimed that these two had a scuffle before actually shooting this person, which is actually contradicted by, the principal person within the case. Me along ko ya tele bungata man na fata baluta ko etol ni mo manyo saba woto Bakari Jaju yemin famanto nyafa. Nyimba Bakari Jaju kilingo itolle ko itolbe bokan nampal mari male, but not I understand wala nyente ko Bakari Jaju now, other two soldiers were calling each other, within the same, area. Itol coming claim ko itol ka bonampal mari male. There is no call log indicating that they were coming from Palimarima. Ila call logs are indicating that they were calling each other at the same time. They claim to be coming from the same location and they were the same people, many along ko itol ko ibenyi mo fala ba indika. Bare ite be mo fala min bayndi kan ato local malong fayde ne ka koyolo dum fayde ne ka fingolo dum baral ka fo mole ko yellowish or ass yellow or either or. It cannot be fonyin tek no moro nie mo min jabi mo fala nyanta alon na lay min do. So in that case, in that point, there is nothing that you've even told us. You cannot even tell us if this person wore a white or black shirt, let alone to even tell us who this person is. Listen, Gambia Masakunda. A DPP who is Director of Public Prosecution in the Gambia should definitely be giving an exit, because nyinte mo kendeti amalong akaminke amala adukuolo, or he is deliberately trying to do things to actually cover the regime, and the regime cannot cover itself. Otobakari Arjaju eminfo aning anti jawo eminfo MalmoJr. That is not a credible witness. And these are the same people who said that they could not tell among the three of them who the senior man is. These are the same people who claim that while they were pursuing this gunman, he was firing at them and also firing in the sky. But it is the same their military ballistic examiner who told us only 3 bullets came out of the gun that killed 2 and injured 3 and injured a third person, and went on to fire more bullets into the air, and of course towards the direction of the so-called soldiers who were pursuing him. So wafani yalo atoloko masakunda alko kiti mo nyanda lala wala to convict Useno Boja. They said fulanjango muminti wala nyinti ko itoloko PW5 wala MalmoJr Saudi, and MalmoJr Saudi is the head of anti-crime. MalmoJr Saudi la kokiti bungoto ko kabiring itoltata Useno kama kazamas ataning Useno dunda moto ko nulate wonyininka wala kate ko ntela nga police olufa akeda jumala nyala hanimo jumala ya kalamuta hanimo ya record la kabira ka foy hani yesede le soto wala ko Useno le ofoyete bang hani Useno ko ma faye ko ngamola fa na mo kacha soto anda man possible police oli nante kamma yenamuta e konte mo falalti police la kuntiyo ninte da madre tara moto kono atara ma witness sotala. In the basic policing protocols, that does not happen anywhere, and there is no way that you can start investigating somebody at the point of capture, because yemo muta time mo minanga leba handcuff la alias indi moto koma do alias sandwich je alias samba falkata daming alena investigation okuma sukot but investigation dula min photo de mo fonto le ko kabirato le odundi moto kono iteni wadda mala be moto kono ete wonyini nka ko ete ko atele police olfa keda jumala nyala mo man soda keda min nyala atolo ko kiti bo nyanta lala walla ka fo Useno ko be soro na la fo siyo atolla buka malu atolle mal baliata bara atolle jowyata. Sometimes you start talking and you start getting really wilder, but amanjaro bela because ntangalo ntornatal fotata daming fo malo min batolo kande ndesan. These criminal police officers, abewolo kono nyi MalmoJr Sow, Commissioner MalmoJr Sow, italoko, you as a whole commissioner, the people that you went with, the team that you went with, we know all of them and we know all their names. What all man shit drum? In case banana drum battle be, all of you would have one thing or another to answer, because someday, somehow, justice will prevail. I know not under this regime, because the regime is completely complicit in the killing of the cops. But someday, somehow, kujamala tambira nyimbanko ka. Nemi mankarano ya ala 22 years la inanata karana. Alabe mobile ida mantral da mali. This case have opened, a lot of eyes in this country to realize that there is a criminal justice system that is hell-bent on single narrative, prosecution and incarceration, and that you will not get away with in this case. Itako, yetani useno da mala tumoto konete wenye ninka wason teta mako atale police olofa. Bara useno ka mafoe. Itale afo nyam mafoe la sedo le sedete jakeda jumala nyala manke mo nyala ha wolon to nyala wata la foe. Is the judge dumb? Atoloko alafta relaila wala kan ka fo jojo nyi ko kare sorong asio atale police olofa. Atole amadan tol mo nyama atol letifo. Hani nyama ato fo ngata sonna wala. NPP adumo mombete ya mansaya manjari nyimbela ha atolo mo kilingol la continue da ko dengal ko ni aje nyanda nyin soro nasio bela e nyanda lala minna wala Michael sang sang Michael Jata who actually minna moto be nunji anu moto nyi mbunne but fatol malonko the vehicle that you claim that belongs to Useno Bojang belongs to a police officer who has a gun, and of course what was his vehicle doing at the center of this scene that the bystanders all claim that this vehicle belongs to the shooter, and then al control ko ale propaganda min follow run al control ko moto nyi belongs to Useno Bojang. When you realize that the vehicle actually belongs to a police officer, you turn the story around and say, no, the vehicle was given to a taxi driver. What is a taxi driver doing with a non-taxi vehicle? A private number plate. Listen. Reality. These are the same people that continue to tell us that they want to rule this country. These are the statements that the government wrote, and this is what they refer to as overwhelming and unshakable evidence. Up till now, I did not tell you that the government could not establish Useno's physical presence on this particular site. The government could not establish the motive, the reason why Useno will do anything like this. Because the motive they initially played to us is that he is a member of the UDP. He works in Brikama Area Council and the police only UDP lebenyola wato UDP lebatina laita police olofa. Woku nying woman finte kotenge yoku brosle. That was just out of their press conference. But mone atin na Gambian kolongal nyininka. Mansakunda la press conference. Why did they browse everything under the carpet? Ngamire tolia ukumul for wale tola investigation report ye Gambian kol be kumandela puruka na foye itolia ming investigate and ye minje ukoda mone atin na imu wasambakiti bungota yobe la niduma woto ye uliala for Gambian koli mone be mansakunda bulala ulia for la Gambian koli the National Security Advisor, the police chiefs, and of course all the National Security Council. Why do we think the National Security Council, after meeting the president, will come out to the public and lie to the entire nation? Tell Useno Bojang that he's a rebel, 110 Tonyante. Call him that he works in Brikama Area Council Tonyante. Molle Ajopura Police Olfa Tonyante. We actually got part of the money he was paid, and none of this money was presented. So, Hani Seda Jara kill him because he told Controleko part of the money he was paid was recovered. That was good enough to go and present that to the court. But this is the amount that we have recovered from him, and leave it to the court for determination. Hane bututo. Amandong kiti mot. Desan. Kumako wahon. Mawedila. Ne Gambian biduna boneni, duna sohoreni. I think when we were studying for our masters, ninku kera Gambia wata mo ko karle mo fanga bilai when you foreign boy when amol banafal ka lete you sometimes sound like you are, how do they call that word, xenophobic or whatever. Like, no, but I'm more Gambian or bukan nyimanya sifa ka konyeta man Gambian lo ibada fonini adunte mo jaw sifale be nyimbanko kan mo kurun sifale be nyimbanko kan. Wait until it befalls you, then you will know that we have bandits and criminals in this country, including people in our uniform. And wala fintita jang alanke na mata amam mabo kotenke desan mansakunda malta almaluta almalla malo jaino alko on top of it PW number 3 mama ajabi. You will mention a couple of your witnesses to actually say they said this, they said that, and on that basis maybe you could actually convict this person. But to include Mama Ajabi, that is disgusting. Itoluko Mama Ajabi la kumakangol are so compelling that the judge should, in their view, convict Useno Bojang. But Mama Munefo. Mama ko Usenu confessed to him that he killed the cops. And she recorded the confession. When asked about the confession audio, she said the audio is lost because she actually deleted her WhatsApp. When DPP was asked about the confession audio, he said, Mama lost the confession audio because her phone is spoiled. Two contradictory statements. But when we presented this audio, DPP was fighting vehemently, trying to condemn the admissibility of this same audio. Paratol audio muntol nata fena ngaliela drompuru kuro e koi. Almurun tal kalfangol la audio dalilo miyati natole useno bojamuta alko wote present la wakiti modo bara sayeng atoloko mama la kuma kangol kiti o nyanta dependa wala kampurka useno sorongasio ya ma atol be kendere atol mo kinongol la kontrole kiti modo ko mama million ata bara atol kinongol le o mansa kunda kinongol la audit report finti takatandiko mama was giving $1 million from funds that it was supposed not to be for that purpose because it was not done rightly. Yaje ni alaba bole koto. Akaboy koto nyasi obela nyama. You went to the wrong account. If the president actually said, I will give a bounty, I don't know where the money should come from, file a pocket lumber for somewhere, but you went to a state coffers, picked the money, gave mama the money at the, Ministry of Interior in their conference hall. You invited the police chiefs and gave her the 1 million. Mama nara kiti bunga kwe manko di diatela. Alko mama la fanyalo. Amurunta koten kakata la audio ay min janjang GAMBIA be kono dunia be asotwa ko wo filta tamale. Bara kabirin tol nata fe na mpuru aliye la moy mama ne useno lo seno ba fola natu bo abo mama bo wurla fa ko yalo ne nyim yake nyim minate e police ol min fatente. When they realized upon transcribing that audio at the police headquarters over 3 times and understood that this guy made no mention of killing the cops, they wanted to drop the audio, but we compelled them to bring the audio. They refused to, and we brought it forward to the court, and they wanted to fight its admissibility. What a ning ayata ra ko tonya nin tilingole batoloto. Allah audio muna nalbe balana puru we na kiti bungo. And now you want to tell us that PW number 3 mama jabi minfo. Inyanta useno boyla walla. But mama me yalon ka benun ka samasle. Mama mantra GAMBIA mantra sukuta traffic light. But she just said, oh karle ya fanya bara fai audio minfango to atol ko audio tinala kaberen tol nata audio fintini na ngata ko hani fengo fenga mula for mama that relates to killing the cops. Alko Jojo nyanda useno bojan sorona walla. Atol man kendea. Up till this point, they are still unable to tell us what connection Useno's got to kill the cops. If he is a rebel, if he was paid to kill, what his motive is still not known. Up till this point, up till the end of their brief. But another manefo, because some of the exhibits, and this exhibit 13, what 13 for number Jamal, I'm trying to talk, I read stuff and then I try to just keep it on top of my head. Probably that's not the right numbers that I'm trying to quote from. But the whole point is that one of the exhibits, many alonko, listen, Kathleen and Usenu were having a conversation that whole night. And there is no way you can be having that and killing the cops at the same time. She flew from the United Kingdom to the Gambia, authenticating all her messages, kept them in a flash drive, and also had printouts of them, presented all of these things to the courts. And we are not going to the case. And you know what they are arguing in their brief? Eko usienu la telefono sa tarano modo bulele actually writing messages. But mune atin na kabira atole usienu mutalka eko telefono nyi yele. Ay telefono nyi yele atole telefono nyi format. Ninga yata rako. Usienu la telefono was left with somebody else to be doing the messages so that Usienu can actually go and kill the cops. Why didn't you arrest the person? Why didn't you press him to tell you who his phone was with? But again, mone atina kabira atoli amuta, atoli Usienu la telefono kona jibi ali aje ko tonya. This guy was so busy on WhatsApp, and for somebody to be doing that and killing the cops is almost impossible. Why did you format his phone? State complicity and state masterminded banditry should be something that me along Komoro you got to think very critical. But with this one, you just need to be open like normal kacharek, and then you know that kula manta kujan tilimon into nyamanta majan. Listen. Ibeje kotenko iko PW number 9 mi yalon ko wolon Abdoulaye Drameti ntama hada madungoji min jow yata konnante yata hasidi yata min tamita nyi Abdoulaye Drame la de iko Abdoulaye Drame ko kabira ate Ousainou Bojang sister pick on the night of that incident around 11, because if the incident happened between 8 to 10, around 11 long ate Ousainou la sister pick. I pick yundu manata da for Brufoot, ya Ousainou pick janata da for Brikama garage, and then they went to Casamas. Ala, atekate Ousainou pick an army on the day of the incident. But the facts before the court is that Ami only went to Brufoot the next day in the morning, or somewhere about that. Ami la swore on the day of that incident. Also, mo someone that wolta atada for Brikama market. Inata command Brikama Marcielto. Another Brikama Marcielto wolta motota wolta purkata Brufoot. You know, to actually get Ousainou, because you know, into Bafenko Nindong Wolfana Wolta Nindangamo and all of that, and then you know all of those things were happening. But that's not the substance of this matter here. What Ousainou did is his business. Whatever arguments he's having with his family, that's not for me to talk about. But the whole point is that Ami Botana Wolta was so more someone there. Now this Abdoulaye Drame Minko atele Ami Sambe Wosuto ate Ami Jumala Samba Wosuto Gambia Masakunda ko we should rely on Abdoulaye Drame to actually convict Ousainou Bojang and Ami Bojang ko wala ko atele Ousainou ning Ami Samba Wosuto fongola lungo minna incident nyinketa but Ami Botala korda kono woso mo somonda la tata Brikama Marsedo so wadate Ami Jumala Samba. And to say that ndanga amisambala up to the border and then nga Ousainou di motorcycle tiyo contradicts this Abdoulaye Drame kado motorcycle tiyo ko waso mo tilibulo te Ousainou Samba woto waso mo nyinno amitata Brufoot and waso mo nyinno fana mo ameni Ousainou tada up to the jululo ajana ka faje daslam and waso mo nyintili bulolong this motorcycle tiyo kate Ousainou Samba and waso mo nyingula rolong Ousainou fudada jululung garaso dan wolongola fudada nyimama jabima. But Abdoulaye Drame ma Ami Bojang Jumala Samba and I Ousainou Bojang Jumala Samba. But I mean from bala fulia lankena mala wala nyinteko. When this incident happened, immediately was it broadcasted on any radio? Ala fonye radio minta broadcaster dame. Katu nying Abdoulaye Drame akate be motolo kono while they were listening to the broadcast on television on radio. Ami and Ousainou were in his vehicle. Did you understand that? That night of the incident, while this matter was being broadcasted on the radio, I have only Raji Juma ate wala muta mimbi o broadcast kango o tarintaringo kono kabiri wo incident keta. Because radios don't just jump and start broadcasting things without actually having facts. And I don't think there was any radio that night that actually broadcasted that 2 police officers were killed. This was all on the social media and people were talking about it, but I did not think it was broadcasted on any radio. But again, ite mo fula mimuta wol betela moto kono itani wol betakang and then itani wol tata all the way to Brikama garage. According to him, they spoke in a language that he did not understand, and I will assume that they were speaking in Jola until they got to the part to talk about the killing. Then they spoke a language he understood, this Abdoulaye Drame. But again, Ousainou only left the next day in the afternoon. So how did Abdoulaye Drame pick him a day before that? That becomes the fundamental question. Atoloko, we need to rely on Abdoulaye Drame. The person you brought in coached him to lie against people. And for some reason, his lies did Allah be manna tembe. So these are the arguments of the state. That on the basis of Abdoulaye Drame la fanialu, Mama Jabi la fanialu, Commissioner Momodu Sow la fanialu, Yalon Diaji so wonto for la kotenki. Oga codes. Wala codes will never be. They are not referencing those codes. They are not telling us Ousainou is a rebel. They are no longer telling us he's a member of the UDP. They are no longer telling us that he works in Brikama Area Council. Now it is Habar Mama Lako, Atondi Mama Jabila Koteng, Momodu Sola Koteng, Bakari Jajula Koteng, Abdoulaye Drame Koteng, Nko, Wotong Alango Ousainou Soronga Siola. This is what you people want to tell us. And this is what you want the country to believe in. But the other dimension that the NPP is taking now is a very dangerous path. They said, I don't know the judge. I'm not really a fan of any person. Because one thing about me is, you know, I respect people. I'm not judgmental to people. But I speak my mind, irrespective of who is involved. When the judge gave that unfreezing order for the assets belonging to the former president, I said that was wrong. But that was wrong. And of course, he said his court was blindfolded. That's not my case. If they want, they can steal the entire country, including even its people. But here is the point. NPP for the whole time never said anything about this judge. All of a sudden, Abdullah Sanya na judgment okeda. Before Bora, I don't know, Bora Sisawala, judgment okeda. All of those did not go in favor of the government. Now they are anticipating that, of course, clearly, to even the dumbest person in the streets would know that if Masakunda they started telling us that the judge is an opposition, whatever. The judge, is corrupt or whatever. The judge is a bad person. The judge is this and this. And you know where that is coming from? The NPP hierarchy, from its ranks and files, including even National Assembly members, because we've heard one Keba Lang Fofana in the National Assembly insinuating, trying to even paint this judge. They said, like a young man who would look at truth and try to just, come anya bitiako, that la hajiti al kare sorong ICO dan ko drone tebe min nantang wosoto je. Ntaka muna fama min soto je we continue. But one thing I know is everybody who wants Barrow to continue for a third term is not doing it for the Gambia. It's not because of love for country. It's because of their personal benefits and, of course, the things they're getting from the regime. Even within your political party, Gambia cannot. Woto abejarla nyini kuo bela la puruka molfaka wande dingolo tora ka wuliani tapalea leka puruke sorom ndesan nyen commissioner so minko usenu la kate moto kono ko atele police olfa atela murunta ami bojan jibe anyako na kaya ko UDP la bula mo fala commissioner so etene molka nyojibe nyimbanko kan wala nyama alko wala mutilongo ni ntonyati alia ami sorong alia ninke kanangol sorong sele killing ikaye ko UDP la bula police fala kato atol la script alia mi prepare ala fangwe mi ya la bula police fala alia safe wala to ko UDP ko le police lo fa kato itolle nim police lo sonkata wala police lo itolle la mulu bute itolle ko police lo ko banjo la tole. So you cannot tell us today that the judge is evil, the judge is bad, the judge is criminal. No. We have followed the proceedings from day one to date. But what I do not understand is that to expect that the regime, the DPP, will lie again in his brief. Nanamalano wala. Nsondala kwa fania mfoko mama la audio filetala omo faniality. Nsondala fananko, they did not do a proper investigation on this matter because they are the ones who committed the crime. But in Sondala Fananko, when it was brought to justice, they could have done a better job to examine the facts before actually advising to go to court. But I never thought that the DPP will add things into his brief that did not actually happen in the open court sitting. DPP, there was a parade organized to identify Usainu Bojang. That was in fact the argument of the defense and my argument that Before you can tell us that it's Usain Obojang who killed the cops, when you know that the cops were killed and there were other eyewitnesses, what you could have done was to make sure that you bring in 10 or 15 people londi ya foyoko alna bawa ketato lenyala ala identify ale minje nyindulato. But none of that happened, and then now you want to tell us that, oh yeah, there was a police officer who organized a parade and Usain was identified. Identified by who? Because none of your witnesses claim that a parade was organized and I was the person who identified this person and I was at the scene when the crime happened, and when the parade was organized, I identified the same suspect. So for me, what I do not understand is initially Safonoloko Mansakunda could make a mistake and arrest the wrong person. That's very possible. And they could go into proper investigation and realize that they got the wrong person and let the person go and apologize. Yes, that's possible. But yemo kitin di faniakang, for kiti yo bang faniakang, yamuron kotenke in writing your brief, ye faniado lafa wato kotenke. That is a deliberate intent and cowardice to frame innocent young Gambians in an attempt to cover up a state masterminded crime. Dolta sila lao fola. Eko niye mbulo wule ni ko mansula mo bulo fenna. De ise nyimbulo fana wule yafo ko mo mansula mbulo fenna. And I've seen a lot of people who don't talk to me directly, but will talk to a couple of friends. Masaya mo mbena de do to break manandra fay dem support baron nga ke alama alay yankankati. A government that subjugated my people, incarcerated innocent Gambians, a lactating mother languishing in jail with asthma for 2 years, 6 months. Aliala dimbaya tora. Aliala sukononkolo tora. Every day, ka konton sambole turning nice, probably more than $200. Put 2 years, 6 months. It's almost over, $200,000. Only wala the pansol nin kukotang almanna mi yalong ko, they are the breadwinners of their families. They are the ones taking care of their families. Ali sindi dula killing, al sindi dula killing. Fengo fenna fotapale ya bandiya konante ya ninjoya. Ani wasabalia. And this is what you people want people to believe. You think everybody who basically tell government do right needs a job? No, we got jobs. Well-paying jobs. Alhamdulillah. And amange kutumi alonko is even important. That's nobody's business. Saying Almang advocacy points soto, if not to turn around and tell us that the judge is bad. I'm kuleki. And Adamala Masakunda, no matter how much you dislike the United Democratic Party, be fair, be honest to yourself, and your inner instincts will never lie to you. Alan kukilimbe keren dunia, omukukende balti alandaro la karot. No matter how you think your crimes or your banditry or your evil is hidden, your inner self will never lie to you, and it will always tell you the truth. And when your inner instincts would tell you the truth, you yourself will know that I did not do any right, and your inner being would judge you before any other person will. Adama UDP kato bekete itemi yalonko imalong hamulo munulo amulo. Like, what exactly do you have? Like, what was your profile to be chosen as presidential candidate? Nothing. The party that gave you everything with all odds against the most, against everybody who is more competent than you, they still made you the candidate. And of course, you became the candidate of the coalition. You won elections. You won a second term. And you still feel like you could kill the cops to stain that political party. And this is what people be telling other people to shut up. They need not to say anything because they could become anything in this country. If I should become something in this country on the basis of lies, manipulation, and deceit, let me become nothing. Because it's not worth it to me. I watched that little kid Sanjay go to school in presentation of Mary. Dinding cake wearing among problems so Obukadia Madara Mola Puto, about Hajo Topoto Kale Jeki Kofa simply because the next person he was standing beside is called, Pate Jallo. And it was the UDP that said that Pate Jallo Mbanjo Letole. Almuruntale wanted Dingola for Alme Fada Lilekang, simply because you're trying to target the United Democratic Party. Wale Atina Kabira Ketale Jumale follow arrest. Momodu Sabal Nimba Yosonko Ayatara Wolbe Muntole, Wolbe United Democratic Party. What the Ning Ayatara ko Atola investigation is anything to go by. You told us from your investigation that Usain Obojang is a rebel. Why didn't you bring that to the court? You told us from your investigation that Usain Obojang actually works for Brikama Area Council. Why didn't you bring that to the court? You equally told us that Usain Obojang, is a member of, a political group that actually hired him to kill. Why didn't you bring that to the court? Yenlo mukulti nyantala nyininkala minna. Mone ya alabula kuma fola mini ya lonko anintili ngoninto nyamanta manke kusodorinti. But just to conclude on this matter, we will just jump into some other things that got to do with Ginek. Listen. My first cousins they're originally from Ginek. Because my mother's little sister, who lives in California, was, while in the Gambia, got married to Ginek. She's got 2 kids there. The husband passed away, and, and she came down America. I've not frequently visited that side, but my big brother used to. And because we go to Nyomi Berending, and these are our cousins, and, we used to live together at one point and all of that. But this is an island, for the longest time, that have been importing water, potable drinking water from a foreign country. What have the government of the Gambia done to that fact? Gambia Masakunda, Walmalonko, Ginek, they were importing water from Senegal. The most basic necessity in any human civilization is water. But to tell you that communities in the Gambia or communities exist in our country that import water from a foreign country, and of course buying every little gallon of water for $5 and of course transporting it for $25, that actually tells you that $30 is spent on just a gallon of water that is imported from a foreign country. Gambia in 2026 exist communities that actually import water from a foreign country, that have not seen light since the birth of that community, that continue to be deprived, subjugated, marginalized, insulted, and shamed publicly because they grow weed. There's that. Alien bading olo ngaibe. Alien fenta ya tandi dunia. Tanata wala. Kato nyama wa fo manke kukendete anu wala fonga yalo nako manke kukendete bara botong fo nyama ni fendol fananka baluje ba malam, because the whole point is that Ginek is an island and you got to understand the socio-ecological setting of that environment to understand if it is really, because niaje jio fonga buka sodonoje ngamera ko jio lebeje. Now, they have to actually go to Senegal to actually get potable water. They got no electricity. They got access to no facilities. They got no transport network. It's just an isolated, island somewhere that probably those are the only crops that grow there that I cannot in any way, verify. But of course, that is subjected to agricultural investigation to determine if only wheat grows there or if there are other plants that grow there. But of course, if they grow wheat for survival, why didn't you provide them an alternative means of survival? Why didn't you actually give them access to potable water? Why didn't you actually give them access to electricity? Why didn't you actually change their socioeconomic activities within those communities? But continued deprivation, continued subjugation, continued marginalization is what led to what you did. And now the community has been turned into a hub for a route to, illegal migration. They said. I told them to actually put in processes and procedures to bring about law and order in that community. But before you actually, hani la korda ni ko italo mu korda dim folo wala italo mu alfati wo korda kon moro min nyante ma alfa karole ko wala ma fa folo janni ba folo ko ila luwalla be tamala je bare banku mi ya lonko atolo man karam bunu lo woli atolo man lobtane di walla atolo man balu nyimma di walla atolo man hani jio hani min jio fam wala kata wosan wanni banko laka atolo muru al katolo la luway ba tama wodo and then you see other people tell, oh, but government is right. Nobody have the right to actually, grow whatever. Government cannot be right when government cannot provide the basics, the very basics for its communities. Why do people pay taxes? Is to actually bring about development to the people of our country. You cannot continue to subjugate, marginalize, and deprive our people and still expect them to do nothing and, of course, just live and die. What do you want the people of Ginek to do? To sit back and die? Imagine a gallon of water that you got to buy for $25. Korda kono ning ayatara motanne beje atolo be bidon jalla sanna mole nyantale ka saliji yolo mota mole nyantale ka kala batu mole nyantale keming mole nyantale keku mole nyantale hadama ngo min nyantama. All of those things need to be done in those communities. But even potable water does not exist there. They got to go buy it from a foreign country. Atolo ko albe wolle doyala albe wolle ngaybela albe wolle tinyala albe wolle lankena mala. Simply because you believe that you have power in your hands and the law and order need to be established. But before you establish law and order, and listening to that so-called Minister of Information, the Minister of Disinformation, to say that, oh, we are going to bring alternative sources of livelihood, we are going to give them boats. Before you give them boats, give them drinkable water. But almanke masakunda de minka bara tonyala. Almanke masakunda kendeti atol mo sunsulu toldeti kato atol le control ye janko yaya e Gambia la bagasol bela sunya. But generally, even if you look into that, you told us that Jammeh stole a lot of assets from the Gambia. If Jammeh did steal a lot of assets from the Gambia, from a thief to what? Looters? That is exactly what happened. Kato ko adama la nyimman sakundala gross incompetence would lead to a point that somebody in this country under Adama Barrow's watch could sell, a cow for $2,000 or $900 is unimaginable. For somebody to tell me that the gross incompetence in Adama Barrow's government, that somebody could actually go to a point that you could sell a car for $5,000 is unthinkable. As unthinkable as it is, these are things that are undeniable, irrefutable facts that are just before all of us. Ko nyimman sakunda kabiri nata nyaton ko yala nyimban ko kan walla keta multi min yalan ko ni solo wafu keme konontol nyin lo man sakunda te min yalan ko e bagasol wafu ko dol manje nyin lo man sakunda te multa do ko la nimbi akato ma Amadou le te sinene akato ma Ahmed le te sinene ko akato ma Amadou Bambalati o mo kidingol walla mo tapaleti nyimman sakunda la soro da min yalan ko ka justice minister ta min yalan ko ka sile drum hand picking people and giving them positions of responsibility kala sungudo na company ta ka do ko baldi like $116 million, abusing processes and floating every process just to enrich themselves. But what actually baffles me in this whole case, realizing that MalmoJr, a minister, had actually brought it to the attention of the government and brought it to the attention of that particular so-called minister Batambedu, but yet the person was adamant and even threatening him of prosecution, knowing fully well that what he was doing was criminal and, of course, against the existing principles of fairness in our country. That guy should go to jail for economic crimes and abuse of office. Naliake wala mutonyati nalmake albetilimbali alla. Atole along atole sunsulutolo. Because for Bar to actually publish a government white paper commending the work of the commission, calling it exceptionally, great, just for us to realize that vehicles were sold for $5,000. That is what you call exceptionally great? This is the worst regime that one could ever imagine. And for people to claim that it's those individuals and not Barrow, it only speaks to one thing: Barrow's gross incompetence and inability to lead the Gambia. Therefore, Gambia needs change. 10 years is enough. If you believe in this country, you believe in the truth, and you believe in your inner instincts, if you tell us that Barrow must remain, you are not doing it for the interest of this country. You are not doing it for the love of this country. You are doing it to satisfy your ego and your personal desires. And that includes anybody and everybody who thinks that Barrow needs to remain. What can Barrow offer? Manjutala. Barala mansa kunda man tilmonin tonyata man nyimbanko ka nyimmansa kunda mo sunsuluto leti. And some of the names they're trying to omit from some of the reports. Moro ngalon ne minya bagasol sa. You people went to a point that you are going into Fonyi and even uprooting, borehole pumps in women gardens and selling it to other people who are major funders of the regime. There is no regime as criminal as this one. Listen. Alko modol minya bagasol nyin sang albeta wol dundila dia monin kudol le kono. But here is the point. Who is actually supplying heavy fuel into the Gambia? Who are winning major contracts of government in the Gambia? National Assembly, if you have an oversight function to look into those things, look at them. They are predominantly NPP funders. More minika NPP fund. Walleka contract balwin in the Gambia. They pay them in millions and in billions, and they turn and give some chicken change to NPP to continue its political activities. That in itself is criminal. Walle tamata, even including the sales of assets, because in a public auction to say, I'll not ni more after you come and buy this and that. No. You were told the right processes and procedures to follow. You kept a blind eye to it. You turn around, submitted a report to the president, who turns around and said, oh, that speaks to one thing: incompetence and inability to deliver for the Gambian people. Hamulo, Munulo, Bail, Doina. Baratolo mini yalon ko kunkilin na fa ko la balto alla palasol natol la kodin ngol alka Minnesota atolo be wole ni mansa kunda falenta sa kente be Minnesota kanto wosoto la wota mansa kunda tu jente la kunkilin na fa kan atolo boka Gambia je ni mansa kunda da mi yalon ko employment and employability of a person does not depend on your competence and ability to do the job or qualifications. It's your political affiliation, and of course being a surrogate for the regime. Katwal tada janki and janel ning UDP tada by election ole yalla candidate to win ale manakale do ko diala GRA. I don't why do ko so no GRA nyadi la. What exactly, when did people see GRA actually opening application? When did people actually see the CV of this person who actually qualifies to work at GRA? I don't do ko wala nyama. Karalama Sakunda is built on biological inheritance instead of competence, and of course opening up to every Gambian who has the qualification and ability to function. But this is a government that is built on lies, deceit, and manipulation. And often in a country like that, you have a few young people whom we think are intellectuals, but they are intellectual bandits who are only after jobs for themselves and not for the collective good of the country. And you see, that is why I don't rush to comment or actually commend people. Because bika minten to yaja so mani okay baro je ni wala kuma kangolo mo ni o manyaja fang ikamali fang fele. Recently we saw the government actually appoint a few young people into some so-called positions. And they were commending the government that of course it is involving young people in decision making. But let me tell you, who is under 35 and is a minister in the Gambia? None. Who is under 35 and of course it's a key, is a permanent secretary, like a permanent secretary under 35. I'm not sure there is. But who is under 35 running, a key government institution in that country? I have not seen. But even if that exists, you employ 5 young people in key positions. You completely defund Gambia College. Mia Alonko, before this regime come into effect, going to Gambia College was free. You just need to have the qualifications, a minimum of 4 credits from high school. You will go to Gambia College, you will learn for 3 years at 0 cost. Do bale mini ya lonko, they have university requirements, but their parents cannot pay university for them, and they did not have government scholarship, will resort to going to Gambia College because it was free. On top of it, nita mambono Allah sade do kana kombo wale, you know, imang tarano Allah sade do going to school every day. What do? You actually go and stay on campus for free. And on top of that, you are giving a stipend of $500 to actually keep yourself going. Kabring Adam Barola Masakunda Nat 500 buka di karamundo dindina. Karambunga manke firiti ka wulitan lulu wulitan nane ka wala jo to go to Gambia College. And then back then they would give you a stipend. You go to school for free. You have a place to live for free. And on top of it, as soon as you complete Gambia College, you are giving a job directly. Direct employment into the field. But what exists now? And that was for School of Education, School of Agriculture, Public Health, and School of Nursing. Go. No Solomini Karambongo Bang about 2 years ago. They just started employing some of them now because we are in election year. Wali Sanji Bumburungo Sile Mando Kusodo. In their hundreds. School of Education, Minitara Jedolbe Jolbe Sirin Sanje Fula Sanje Saba. Saying near Karamongo Bangambia College, you have to go and struggle to look for a job. There is no direct employment into the education sector. There is no direct employment into public health. You have to sit for a year. Public health bank last year or year before last. In their hundreds, and of course thousands and thousands go to Gambia College every year, and now they are paying thousands and thousands to get that education. But even after getting that education without any stipend, you still will struggle to go get a job because the direct employment is completely cut off. So you employ 4 people, you deprive 10,000 young people from getting jobs who used to get direct jobs. This government is not creating jobs, but it is cutting out jobs that exist in this country. So what and you know, people that they keep convincing to vote for them are the people that will continue to suffer more, because most of these young people that are deprived of getting free education are actually deprived of getting direct employment, even though their employability is very high compared to other people who just turn into political surrogates with 0 qualifications getting big jobs in the country. Wale atina sai koibe mindundila wala nyinte ko NPP scholarship. But you are the ruling government. Therefore, you should rule all Gambians. When it comes to education, the priority should not be NPP dingolo. It should be every Gambian. When it comes to access to finance for women, it should be every Gambian woman that you need to empower. But I told you for saying, Alco NPP women funds, Alco NPP scholarship. So that means everybody, because poverty is prevalent in the country, you have to subjugate and impose your terms and conditions on people so that they can be compelled to have NPP membership card so as to put foods on their tables, because ni dingolomang karang. Then they got their parents to be blamed. And when the parents don't have the financial muscle to educate their children, what would they do? They will become, you know, political sycophants for the NPP just to educate their children, even when they don't believe in it. That is how you subjugate a people. Alo ya kan tolo fwala, atolo ka fwala ya na nyorinkan. Listen. Fwari ya mkuja ubaleti. Because even if I'm going to ikajela moba tinyanka tonya nintilonka, because ita tonya fono like kato moro itala balu obe dendi wo marile bulu. What can you say? It's just like a child who is fed by his father and you still want him to tell the truth to his father. What is he going to say? Janibe tonya fono la moye moro eke fangola no. And this is what this government has reduced our country to. And turning around to tell people that, oh yeah, we are building roads and we are, of course, electrifying the communities. That's a good thing to do. And that will improve a lot of other things. But how many jobs have you created in this country? Nothing. Including Alchemy for National Assembly, we are going to create this number of thousands of jobs. Can you go for accountability on that and tell us how many you were able to create within the years? And then some other people, because of their political sycophancy, will turn and tell you that young people are happy. Go and stand at the gate of the Gambia College and tell us young people are happy.
Because government is continuity. Now, in continuity, ni na yata ko Gambia College ka stipend already dinding olola. Karamunga mo firileti. Nim imparete, you have direct employment. Ite obey stop. What are you continuing? If you cannot improve it, you should not actually take us back. Gambia cannot be retrogressing. And then under Adam Barrow's leadership, this country is going backward. Corruption has been institutionalized. Kadunin corruption or more institutionalized. How can a government leader, the president, tell us that audit reports are just mere opinions and tell us that corruption is as old as mankind? Those are justifications for the corrupt nature of that regime. Moment corrupt and president fall. But Omar killing you came, Jammeh was a bad person and his salary was 170,000 and all of a sudden you have a big jump into 500,000 and above. Over National Assembly, wali salary badi fangole murunta je ko tange, they are even giving themselves clothing allowance, giving themselves all kind of per diems, giving themselves all kind of allowances. But then Gambia College multitano karamoda when they don't pay hundreds, tens and tens of thousands. Imagine telling an old woman, whose child struggles to actually have a candle to study, to pass an exam, where bona wofa toto nyoloma afangol, akwembeta kombole, mambadi sodo kombo, lafta kata Gambia College, obana fake mira fango, ning kontonda fambe si manal, ite afwe ko ite karanola jan simply because you cannot pay Gambia College, even whereas they struggle to pay. At the end of their 3-year term, they cannot even have a job because there is no longer, direct employment into the system. Alko tuanyata fola nyimbanko ka, alko adama la nyanta continue la ja. That is why when I see people, more so from my community, say, boy, I have a career in tomorrow. Mobuka fonte ndabe mfola man la angaza. And then I have people who basically tell the truth when that time comes. Allah hajitaje. What Allah mandulensi. Tolu mo ilep. Why diga nak mota nakar la jang. Tunyama kilina tabu kefula. Adamala Mansakunda got to go. And this is the perfect moment that it's got to go. And until people realize that no one person rules this world for the end of time, we hadama weka wasale. Hadumo lalabula police file, or hadumo nying, wala bala Mansakunda tinyala, because every other year you are trying to look for means to continue to remain, because mo wasabalo nata fola kanyantale. And that is the life of a betrayer. And when I see people talk about constitutionality, you people, this is the government of no morality. And I'll call Muslim wallet. And then I hear some people claiming to be imams, many along ko wolko ikatol la support. But wolka dina jumala balundi, wolka mol fasa dina jumala kan. Wolinya battle la police farming kada tilimon into nya mantaje. Wolinya battle la ko Gambian ko le ko nalda ko 3 years le mari murunta ko yemin fo mo for ko modrona ita man ta sonna wala. Ita man la ifangola kumolla. Mina gorcha kado. Atol ma fo ko hadama dum ka bare fo ko mola kana fo nyin nyin tuba bol na nyin luwa par nin kudo findal ka ko nasara le bol nyin nay tolle ketenti tolle ka mol fayel do len ñu dimbali. Some of you think people are dumb. I was just listening to one guy that is so loud and lousy. They said he's a sheikh, saying that, oh yeah, there was a law they wanted to put up, and they went to Gambia College and they invited people and said, Nindinami Yalonko, I'm 18 years old, yo fudu, what is against the law. But I told you, sing ning either Momi Yalonka, I'm 18 years old, waiting or album follower, or when you want to preach religion, try to know the other side of things, because you cannot constantly be telling people speaking Arab is just a language, and having the iman and faith and understanding the scriptures are very different. And learning a skill is not just learning a language. And learning religion is incumbent on every person who calls yourself a Muslim or a Christian, and that is not a profession. Go and get a skill, go and get an education, and go and get an education both in the deen and something else that is going to benefit you. And then you don't understand other things, and then you turn around telling people things that do not hold water. You expose your ignorance. And if you are people that people trust so much in terms of the religious denomination and the way you actually preach out, be truthful. Otherwise, people will not tell you more coming for Teman Kulonje simply because I'm Malta Carla. More Altonia for Molie. mo dole be jang wali e fon ke kulti mini alon ko ke fon lon hani ala pala solta tara dum buke malong e like as if you people are going to judge people on this on this earth. What the hell? These are the kind of things we see in society, that people talk about things they know nothing about, and they claim that they have a lot of knowledge about, when in reality they are just loud and lousy. But I'll nyaka dara tonya al kal Dakar wala, because it is not to your interest, it's not to your benefit. Al dole bala kon alba wandi dingol natal la luwolu ngai kamara li wala al wala joyandile kata ni mo la ko andaka nyine ke dino just for other people to come and give you support, in pretending as if you are helping other people's children, exposing little children to the media and telling, oh, look at how they are eating, how they are struggling to eat, and then for you that is basically how you are actually itakela dimba al balundi wala nyama, simply because wudoli ye dingol di la purite wala karande al Quran wala itakata ede bol video la luwolu ko tandi dunia bela ko ete bol la balunde kay bo wandi dingol. Sometimes I don't know what kind of parents give their children to these kind of people. And these are the things that society is seeing, and we are not even frowning at it. Imagine if you bring your child to me, I am a sheikh and I got to teach them, whatever that I got to teach them. And then every day I am filming them to use them to make money. Is that not even against the law? Can the government even put a halt to those kind of things? If people need to support your data, do it professionally, but don't be exposing people's children, some of them not even wearing clothes, and then you're taking a video of them or looking at them eating, and then you're just videoing them everywhere to use them to look for money. What kind of a society do we live in? And you say that is religion? That is how you practice religion. Using other people's children whom you are supposed to be teaching, and of course guiding them on the right path, but of course you are using them, filming them everywhere, and then putting it out there to actually get money. And then you would actually tell us that we got to continue supporting the regime because you think you can use your religion to bamboozle people, make them believe in things that do not exist anywhere. And some of you will turn around. Alka moli George, you come and alalis. And alay milong kila ko nin shoot katona ka tilbuloti ko dol be lankena mala modol be je kay walta fem fonol. Ole atina is important that whatever we do the right thing. And wahante dega and ya tonya ika baralal. Abuka dandala forolad. And unta malla nyola, and then we expect that this country is going to move forward. What ten tonyati? Tonya buka tama wanyama. Adama la mansa kunda nyom mansa kunda kurunga na manso da nyumban koka. Adama la mansa kunda ni mansa kunda konante na manso da nyumban koka. Adama la mansa kunda ni mansa kunda jamfantu na manso da nyumban koka. Ali minke United Democratic Party wada madam makanyanta misalo la nyumban koka. Kato alman danke jamfa almurunta kodenke aldunta hani nyim police fa ko almurunta lafta ka lekan kodenke. Konante ya jowya ning hasidi ya mantambi wala. But what they all together, because they have not said a lot on this case. They just then chimandu like in the hole. Wala atine kona diata drong alhamdulillah, yala tentuoka. I nemo minke do yala tentuoka na kwaliata dung woku kilingolom. Ala kwalia. But I mean, and you see people who actually try to use all these big quotations and try to make that they're referencing, scriptures here and there. Atapaleka siya kendot. Just like in government, the biggest of criminals are those who actually hide behind dressing like sheikhs. I was doing a consultancy for one government institution, and I think it was funded by the UNDP. Imagine your consultant is sitting, and then you are telling some of your junior people, "More min nara would lie, dama fang doya da kafu ko alkai to be funded, alkai to be funded. Ndonda ngani njibi anala ubora ado nala unafu nala haftan wala kafu ko alkai to be funded, ala mol to fundije. Mine nara mine manali be to fundije, just because every other person who attends is going to be paid money." And all this list that they are going to fill, of course, they're going to get that UN money. Told them mallet out better. More the minute told to an internal taman can banko. Yaron told them a minute from a London combi all do for la banko, code of the game. Contraca jackal mulak. That is why Hani be more horror like Kanyang. Katu Tilimbalian in Tajintia in Bangkok, and there are people who will never want that to stop. And there are people who are benefiting from this regime will never want that to cease. And there are people many along every regime that comes, they will actually bounce with you and of course do whatever they got to do for their individual interests and not for the collective good of this country. For this country to change, it must take a radical approach that people must be ready to tell the truth and of course stand by the truth, even if you have to lose everything. You've got to defend nothing but the truth for the for the change that we all desire for the collective good of this country. Otherwise, it will be a selected few that will be out there, living a flamboyant lifestyle, just like this guy, president or nephew. I saw you people attacking people in the UMC, but let's be truthful here. Amadou Sani, eko Adam Barola nyumbarino. Before 2016, Jumale Yalong. Ni Yalong Munela. Akaranda Karamun Jumalato. Atamata Banku Jumaleka. Business Jalle Babulunum before 2016. Million Jalle Bala account also before 2016. Afaramansa Tamuntole Nyumbanko Kam before 2016. Jumale Akalamuta Nyumbanko Kam before 2016. All of a sudden, he became one of the richest people in the Gambia. The man throwing the big shots in the country. The man throwing money everywhere. The man who is going everywhere perambulating as, of course, yes, I am the guy. I am the NPP big tycoon. I see a very, very uneducated, unintelligent young man, because your behaviors, you see, people in government, because ni ibarim botaman se ale betela follow mutala be mutala mundalila ka yenyi million or bonni muntole. Kado kunun ko million tietable, fentietable, all of a sudden you became the biggest tycoon, driving in top cars and of course getting into every meeting one meeting for that more better city kweka Ahmad Labato, Ahmad Long, Mobati, Ahmad Yakodo Bonne Muntola, because Walukum Mayatala to actually know. I have no business whatsoever if you get your money legit. That's yours. But more politically, because your uncle is president, people would nobody manke president million will be able mola hajitije. And you can drop all of mola hajitije. But because your uncle is president, you are the one running into all those politics. And we know before 2016, Moro Mometalo Nyumbankoka, all of a sudden you just appear from nowhere and became a top millionaire out of nothing. Moro, people will ask the question, where did you get all those businesses? Where did you actually get all this money coming from? Where is it coming from? Because most of the major contracts in government now, alkan see fal like okay, taita yung business card register na nga detail ay badi lela mundalila kan tapalayan in tilimbalia, and including even the key funders of the regime. I know some of them mini alonko. Jani ka heavy fuel contract ko fango dila wali pick up woro la di NPP la. Min fango malo fango warra. Just a couple of days ago, not really, I think a couple of months ago, we started running a new railway project, and to get access to, because we are doing some geotechnical surveys, and to get access to the tracks, we needed some flagging, and there is a flagger for one of the companies that I met. I think he's originally from Jamaica, and he told me, oh yeah, where you from? Like, black folks you would know, like, I'm from Africa, Gambia, and oh, Gambia. Then he told me, he wanted to take me to that country. I business dollar sodonung, and he went there. It was so easy to see your president. No matter how you don't like the system, when people start talking who are not Gambian talking about your country, you feel differently. But it's so easy to see your president. But what happened? I got this friend of mine who was establishing he's got a lot of businesses, but he wanted to do some solar related business in Gambia. Somebody, a politician, told him that he could actually connect him to the president, and he himself was surprised. He thought that was a joke. This guy flew to Gambia and then he easily met the president, and he himself could not believe that, of course. Like, and he's a businessman. But this guy told me it was so easy to see your president. But his business did not materialize. Why? I think that year was around 2022. It was about election year in that country. He was asked to actually buy a lot of T-shirts for, the president's party. And he was going to do it, but for some reason, I don't think he really appreciated the, market dynamics in the country. And that is why I did not actually end up going to Gambia. So, indirectly, he's telling me it's so cheap to see your president and your country is very corrupt. He has a business, and of course somebody said I could make you see the president. The only thing those people were asking him to do was basically to go and buy t-shirts or election materials for the incumbent. Because most of the people you are giving all these government contracts to are the major funders of the regime. UDP is under NPP because their business were being crippled. And to save their businesses, they have to really, close their eyes and go and join the regime. Not out of their own volition or desires. It's because they are compelled to. When you see people take some political decisions, because itabuka momin balundi. Imalo ngala baluwo babulu nyadile. Imala kala dimbaya sambanyami. Moro ni wo wulta biya kwe konkata adamalaya. Moro afaya ko alama isa wokele. Because itamalo mundalila ko sambodla. Because the regime is hell-bent on subjugating people and compelling them to join them. Including some of these riffraff politicians who would just jump and say all kind of rubbish and tomorrow they go and join the regime. Because there is nothing in the pocket. The regime will make sure that they shut down every avenue that you have. Including even if you own businesses and you don't have, big businesses in other countries. What would happen is they will shut down all your business entities in the Gambia, and of course they will subjugate you, inject poverty on you, forcing you to join them. But so for Gambia to go, it's very difficult because even people in the civil service, because a lot of people live from hand to mouth. Like a lot of people in my community know that Hussein Bojan did not kill the cops. Predominantly those who work in government will not say anything because even this doku mora joman fensi. Barankana dimbal sudura walla. Ngala nako karama nyinke bar ningafo mbe fola nyindo ko fangol lantana dimbal sudura ko dengue nangay bola betatar la banta ko dengue mona bembola dun no wala amanke ko I don't want to and I don't feel like supporting the truth, but supporting the truth is exposing myself and of course subjugating my people. So therefore I would rather shut up and watch injustice than say anything and of course have my own family subjugated. Nyenna mkude mimbe kering wala nantolo boka mojalay. But I'm a cool kumfala dami foka tenturon in Jairo Mulundi, Lamin Jeda Bokam. You see, this case have opened my eyes in a lot of ways. When Hussein got arrested, I wasn't very much, of course, that's your dude and all of that. But it was my cousin who said, you know what, Omar, we need to help this young man. I was like, but what exactly are we going to do? Because I don't know what exactly the problem is. So probably he did or he didn't do, I don't know, But when facts start coming out, I said, okay, you know what? This guy needs a lawyer to defend him. I went to the University of the Gambia. I know a lot of lawyers. I've known a lot of prominent people who became very good, at what they do. My lawyer follow them in call Gambia. Yala wala boss il dol kamin fo. Moro ndolta nyin case tano la karan tol ni masakunda la ko be nyokono la. It's about interest. It's about the government. It's about what is at stake. It's about me taking a case as peculiar as this one. It might affect my career. It might affect my benefits. Ibeka borina, loyal Gambia ka borina. You speak to people because the people that I know are not like people very old. These are like almost my age. When I say, can you talk to this lawyer? But I spoke to my boss, but in case, it's too peculiar for him to take. No, in case it's too, in case or in criminal cases take too long. But no more in case Benjamin. And at that time, I was like, you know what? But I will try to do what I can do to help this young man. They said they're not going to support him. But his family on another side too were also trying to get a lawyer until J Dabo offered to defend this dude at zero cost. So what a ningamwe Adamakafo, Jimaran Koliako, Atema most of the Mimba Oposka, Mimanke Mama Candidate, or Fadi Yala Tamanda Dekan, Karatabota Jimarale, and Jimaran Kol Ale Kuleke Min and Manke, Wolaka President, or Tolko Monkol, Dolma Lavifena. Alnabe Lamin Jedabola, Alnabe Mokotangol, Nimokotangolola. Nko, Marco in a baraka, Walanyanda Dananyam Bangkok, and call me a regionalist or whatever, I don't care. Because when wars come to us, none of you from all those regions defended the truth. I'll be able to tech. So if Adam is telling us that Jimara Barakatala wala na Jimara president soto. Odon do ko mondol man baraka. Time wala sita mi yalon ko nobody ma ko nga baraka mota kala moy jam. Unless and until it's built on principle and you believe that the people involved in it are righteous people, not these criminals and these bandits in government. And Jedabo offered voluntarily to serve this young man and of course to make sure that justice is done. Along kila along somebody that I respect beyond measure. Ala kumolo bebe la kuring keba kendeba. Mota folako, you know, I monkey respect or whatever, but he does his job diligently with attention to detail, with utmost professionalism and respect for all parties, without even considering money, without considering what impact it might have on his career or what the government could do to him. And this stands a long time, not even just now, even during the days of Jammeh. But in loyal be sort of the many along ko look for game more on total mako no la case to card on tolni masakunda temo. Wala man la fit tonya in tilongo taman la nyimbanko kandi to ko mu loyal the many along ko tonya in tilongo to loka bara wala muka bara minna wala tolla na fulo ne muna fama mo sort la masakunda bulu nyami. We don't care what the government does, and that is why Jammeh was able to rule this country for 22 years. And of course, Kabira Tata until he turned into an eagle picking chicks one after the other. Then we realized that each and every one of us was vulnerable. Until people see that they themselves are vulnerable, some of them don't give two fucks because all they care about is just themselves and their families. So to even be asking some of my friends, boy, I'm going to of course, there are people who work in the same institution as I do, and for some reason we believe they're quite intellectuals, they've got highest levels of education, PhDs and whatever, and they've said all kind of nasty things to this regime that I wouldn't even dare to say, and all of a sudden took a 360 turn to join the regime. You know why? Walmo politician ole de kabira kumashidula. Tana manda ke nyim politiku ku fonkerngol todi. Walmo mollete walmi palasi nyino la kabirin ko wala kumashidula. Nga faale la modo la soro non njang kabirin baro la mansakunda nata kutake. Ite amra mansakunda mi alon kabe kutayari mobe be kontandrin ko mansakunda kutola nata. Waka fontole ko the cabinet is not youth friendly because that person was expecting to be there, but because they were not there, they turned around and told us that Barrow was a bad person. Said all kind of things ka Barrow nen lala onen di role atina Barrow wala appoint wala murunda bi wala ka molen en Gambia wala be molen nen nala just to maintain those positions. You know why? Because those people believe in nothing except for those positions. Those positions were the reasons why they were opposing Barrow, and those same positions were the reason they joined Barrow, and those same positions will be the reason they will insult anybody and everybody to maintain those positions. Alamati loto diara badimolo bare mansakunda man fellandide Kafontole ko Ibrahima Jete, Justice Ibrahima Jete Mambetea. He is an activist judge. He is an opposition judge. He is this, he is that. He is corrupt, he is criminal. Moro Wolube Malkan and Nijang. Useno Bojang and the government of the Gambia will face off on the 30th of this month in the highly anticipated judgment in the matters as they relate to the killing of the cops. And Untonyabe Sabatilal. And some of you others, individuals, I've recorded a couple of you, your names and all of that. I will tell this young man, you know what, as soon as he comes out, we are filing, cases against some of you. Mantal dolo follow. Bara aliyal nyin lako, kasidorong komin diate, kauliala wandidingo kankafo, karle nyinke, atara, bulumadung, asimadung, amanke nyaleta sedianola. You definitely got to pay for your stupidity, some of you. Excuse the language, but that's just the hard fact. But Husseino is doing well. He knows that he did nothing and he doesn't sound to be very, disturbed or whatever. Young man is quite in high spirit. And we all anticipating, that of course the judge will do the needful because he has nothing else to do if not to do justice. That is the only thing available to the judge because there is nothing else apart from just making sure he does the right thing. Even if he intends to do the wrong thing, the whole public will tell him that, hello, dude, what you're doing is wrong. So what Gambia mansa kunda man tonya soton toluma. Gambia mansa kunda ya wandi dingol tarale man kuoku kele ye tora. Ye la dimbaya le tora, ye fania lekang, they subjugated them, they maltreated them, they tortured them, and of course incarcerated them for 2 years, 6 months. Sunkare saba, ibakasola akang. Ibulumedo insimedo. Alkohola mtonya ati nyumbankoka. Alama ali alama sakunda boy. Alama sakunda danna. Alama Gambia sawolo lema. alama tilimbaliani tajinin ya banela ila man sakunda kono alama ila sunsulutol betenkeren na andi betenkeren kanne one by one alam bata mbedi wata tambidala. That's an economic criminal. Allah barakabak.